In 1848, Seneca Falls, New York hosted the first women's rights convention in the Wesleyan Chapel. A century later, this historic and iconic location, the place where the modern women's rights movement began, had become a laundromat. It was a development that bothered Shirley Hartley, founder of the National Women's Hall of Fame.
When we moved to Seneca Falls in 1967, my husband and I had come from New York City, and I was delighted with this small town. And when I learned its history, that it was the home of Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who was very instrumental in bringing that convention together along with Lucretia Mott, I was excited to see where it took place, and it was the Wesleyan Chapel on the main street in Seneca Falls. When I moved to Seneca Falls, Mr. John Rosencrans, he'd been to the Hall of Fame of Great Americans in New York City and was rather appalled that out of 110 honorees, only 9 were women. He suggested the idea to me, and I ran with it.
Shirley organized a founder's tea, an homage to the famous convening that inspired that first women's rights convention. She and a few like-minded friends imagined a permanent home for women's stories and accomplishments. With that, the National Women's Hall of Fame was born.
And in March of 1969, we were able to obtain our Articles of Incorporation and the trademark Women's Hall of Fame. And some years later, they added the word national. Mainly, we were interested in honoring women of achievement and not notoriety.
More than 5 decades later, the National Women's Hall of Fame continues to induct and celebrate extraordinary changemakers. The Hall has honored more than 300 women whose contributions span the arts, athletics, humanities, the sciences, philanthropy, and so much more.
So the National Women's Hall of Fame amplifies women's stories, empowers changemakers, and promotes gender equity through action, education, and storytelling. We are a hybrid institution, so of course we operate the museum here in Seneca Falls for those who make the pilgrimage here. We also offer community-based programming throughout the United States and online.
In 1968, I saw an ad that changed my life. It was very stereotypical. It showed a woman in a very negative light, typical of ads of that time, but this one grabbed my attention. I thought to myself, this is atrocious and it's not trivial. So I started collecting ads and eventually put them into a slideshow and eventually made my first film, Killing Us Softly, Advertising's Image of Women. I certainly didn't think that I was inventing a new field or sparking a movement or doing anything really that would change my life. I was just intrigued and interested and felt that this was an issue that no one else was paying any attention to. It's been quite a journey, and in a way, it culminated for me in 2015 when I was inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame, because that felt like such a powerful recognition of the work that I'd been doing for so long.
The importance of the National Women's Hall of Fame is in both preserving and lifting up the stories and accomplishments of women from our past, but also women who are still walking among us. Bringing together stories of women from such diverse backgrounds who've had major impact and accomplishments in a variety and diverse range of fields and in different formats, but also in particular when we're dealing with changes and erasures of people's history and entire communities' history. It's particularly important for us to have an institution which can fill in those gaps.
The National Women's Hall of Fame is working to expand its reach and share stories of women's achievement with more people from coast to coast and around the world.
I learned about Seneca Falls and the National Women's Hall of Fame when I was in 8th grade, and I remember my parents bringing me up here and coming to the National Women's Hall of Fame and feeling so inspired to now, several decades later, be responsible for stewarding the mission here and continuing the great work that the Hall has done for the last 54 years is such an honor. Through a national broadcast on public television, we are able to amplify the stories of the women we honor and help them reach boardrooms, classrooms, and homes from coast to coast, which is very exciting and something that we're looking forward to sharing with the nation.
Part of the significance of the Hall of Fame is possibility.
The National Women's Hall of Fame is different from all other halls of fame in that one doesn't have to be famous to be in it. And one of the missions of the hall is to tell these women's stories and to use these stories to inspire, to educate, and to tell the stories of women that have often not been remembered, not been recognized, who've accomplished things that perhaps have gone unnoticed but have made a profound difference.
Well, I am just absolutely thrilled that over 300 very outstanding and deserving women have been honored. It's a miracle to me that this little thing that I began has endured and is thriving, and I'm just so grateful to everyone who has supported and continues to support it.
Our organization's vision is a nation that respects women, their voices, and their achievements, and honors their contributions across the wide discipline of fields that we honor. And we believe that that's not only possible, but necessary for a better world for us all.
To learn more, visit womenofthehall.org today.